There is a huge lie hidden inside The Sixth Sense, and the strange thing is that the movie practically tells us the truth from the very beginning. The problem is that we are looking at everything from Malcolm Crowe's perspective, so we automatically believe the same thing he believes, that he is still alive. After Vincent Gray shoots him in the opening scene, the story continues as if Malcolm survived, and because we never see a hospital, a funeral, or any explanation of what happened to him afterward, we simply accept that he recovered. From that point on, Malcolm starts working with Sear, a young boy who claims that he can see dead people, and the entire story appears to be about Malcolm trying to understand Cole's strange condition. But once the ending reveals that Malcolm has actually been dead since the beginning, the entire movie changes. Scenes that originally looked completely normal suddenly become clues. Conversations take on a different meaning, and even Malcolm's relationship with his wife becomes much more tragic. The movie wasn't simply hiding the truth from us, it was carefully making us interpret the truth incorrectly. So here are 7 facts that reveal just how much The Sixth Sense was telling us without us realizing it. The first and most important clue is Malcolm's death in the opening scene. Vincent Gray is a former patient who breaks into Malcolm's house and confronts him about the way he was treated years earlier. Vincent believes Malcolm failed him, and in a moment of desperation, he shoots Malcolm before shooting himself. From a storytelling perspective, this looks like the event that sets up the rest of the movie. We expect Malcolm to survive the attack and then continue his work as a psychologist, which is exactly what appears to happen. The movie cuts forward and suddenly Malcolm is walking around again, thinking about his career and trying to help Cole. Because we have already accepted Malcolm as the main character, we never stop to question how he survived. There is no scene showing doctors treating him, no explanation of his injuries, and no indication that he spent time recovering. The movie simply allows Malcolm to continue existing. That small omission is actually one of the biggest clues in the entire film because Malcolm never survived the shooting. He died in that basement, and everything we see afterward is happening from his perspective. The clever part is that Malcolm himself doesn't understand this either. He believes that he is alive, which means the audience is placed inside the same misunderstanding. We don't question his existence because he doesn't question it himself. The film therefore avoids the usual rules of a ghost story and lets its dead character behave exactly like a living person. There is no obvious transition between life and death because Malcolm doesn't realize that the transition has already happened. The second major clue is Anna, and her behavior becomes much more revealing once you know what is really happening. Malcolm spends much of the movie convinced that his wife has become distant because she is angry with him. He watches her from a distance, tries to speak with her, and desperately wants to repair their relationship, but Anna never responds to him. During the first viewing, it's easy to interpret her behavior as the result of a marriage that has fallen apart. Malcolm has become obsessed with his work, their relationship has suffered, and after the shooting, everything seems even worse. So when Anna refuses to acknowledge him, the audience naturally assumes that she is simply refusing to forgive him. But if you pay attention to what the movie actually shows, Anna never really ignores Malcolm because she never sees him in the first place. She doesn't argue with him, she doesn't tell him to leave, and she doesn't react to his presence. Her behavior is much more consistent with someone who believes she is completely alone. This is particularly important because Malcolm interprets her silence emotionally. He thinks she is angry, and because he believes she is angry, the audience accepts that explanation too. But Anna isn't angry with Malcolm, she is mourning him. She believes her husband is dead while Malcolm is standing nearby, completely unaware of what has happened. That misunderstanding is what makes their scenes so heartbreaking. Malcolm spends the movie believing that the person he loves no longer wants anything to do with him, when the truth is that Anna is still emotionally connected to him but has no way of knowing that he is there. The third clue is the restaurant scene, which initially looks like a painful conversation between a husband and wife, but is actually one of the clearest demonstrations of the twist. Malcolm sees Anna sitting at a restaurant on their anniversary and approaches her because he wants to reconnect with her. He sits down and talks to her as if they are having a private conversation, but Anna never answers him. She continues eating and behaves as though she is sitting at the table alone. During the first viewing, we tend to interpret this as a silent argument. We imagine that Anna is deliberately refusing to speak because she is still hurt by everything that happened. The movie encourages us to make that assumption because Malcolm himself interprets the situation in exactly the same way. But look at the scene from Anna's perspective instead of Malcolm's. She is a woman sitting alone on the anniversary of her wedding, remembering the husband she lost. There is no second person at the table as far as she is concerned. Malcolm's entire conversation exists only from his point of view. The waiter doesn't treat Malcolm like another customer. Anna never responds to him, and nothing in the scene actually confirms that she can see or hear him. The audience simply assumes that she can because Malcolm is physically present on screen. That is one of the movie's most effective tricks. We confuse seeing a character with proving that the other characters can see him. The restaurant scene therefore gives away the ending without ever explaining it. Once you know Malcolm is dead, there is no mystery left about why Anna behaves the way she does. The scene was never about a wife refusing to speak to her husband. It was about a dead man trying to communicate with someone who could no longer perceive him. The fourth clue is hidden throughout Malcolm's interactions with other people. For most of the movie, Cole is practically the only person who has normal conversations with Malcolm. This doesn't seem suspicious at first because Cole is Malcolm's patient, so their conversations are obviously supposed to be important. But when Malcolm interacts with adults, something strange happens again and again. They don't acknowledge him. Malcolm can enter a room, speak to someone, or stand near them, but the movie rarely gives us a genuine interaction between him and another living person. Instead, we see Malcolm speaking while the other person remains completely disconnected from him. During a first viewing, we automatically invent explanations for this because we assume Malcolm is alive. Maybe the conversation happened before the scene began. Maybe the person is distracted. Maybe Malcolm is simply being ignored. Since none of these moments are emphasized, we don't think about them very deeply. But once the twist is known, the pattern becomes impossible to miss. Malcolm's interactions with the living world are almost entirely one-sided. Cole is different because Cole can see dead people, and that is why Malcolm is able to have a real relationship with him. This detail is especially clever because the movie gives us a supernatural explanation for Cole's behavior before it gives us the information needed to understand Malcolm. We spend the story thinking that Cole is the unusual one, while Malcolm appears to be the normal person trying to help him. In reality, they are connected by the exact same supernatural problem. The fifth clue is Cole's most famous line because the movie practically tells us the answer directly. When Cole finally admits what he has been hiding, he tells Malcolm that he sees dead people. The audience immediately understands that this explains the terrifying figures Cole has been seeing, but we don't consider what the statement could mean for Malcolm. We treat Malcolm as the investigator of the mystery rather than someone who is actually part of it. That's why the line works so well. The information is completely accurate, but our interpretation of it is wrong. Cole really does see dead people, and Malcolm really is one of them. The movie doesn't need to tell us this immediately because it knows that the audience will naturally assume the ghosts are separate from Malcolm. We think Malcolm is helping Cole understand the supernatural world, when in reality Cole is also helping Malcolm understand what has happened to him. The significance of the line becomes even stronger after the ending, because we can look back and realize that Malcolm heard the truth long before he was ready to accept it. The audience heard it too. We simply didn't make the connection because the movie had already convinced us that Malcolm was alive. The sixth clue is the way Malcolm's story mirrors the stories of the dead people Cole encounters. The ghosts in The Sixth Sense are not simply creatures that appear to scare Cole. Many of them are trapped because something remains unresolved. They are connected to a traumatic event, a regret, or something they cannot let go of. Malcolm is doing exactly the same thing, even though he doesn't realize it. He has unfinished business with Anna, he feels responsible for his failure with Vincent, and he believes that helping another child might somehow allow him to correct what went wrong. This explains why Malcolm remains in the world after his death. He hasn't accepted that his life is over. Instead, he continues behaving as though he still has a normal job and a normal marriage. His relationship with Cole gives him a purpose, and because that purpose feels real to him, he never questions why the rest of the world seems strangely disconnected. In a way, Malcolm is experiencing the same confusion as the ghosts Cole sees. The difference is that the audience initially doesn't recognize him as one of them. Malcolm thinks he is the psychologist studying the supernatural, but he is actually another person trapped inside it. That is why his eventual realization is so important. He doesn't simply discover a plot twist, he finally understands the same truth that Cole has been trying to explain to him throughout the entire story. The seventh and biggest clue is that the movie never actually lies to us. This is what makes the ending of The Sixth Sense so effective even decades later. The film doesn't reveal some completely impossible piece of information that nobody could have known. Instead, it gives us the truth and allows us to misunderstand it. We see Malcolm get shot. We never see him recover. We see Anna fail to acknowledge him. We see other people fail to interact with him. We hear Cole explain that he sees dead people. We watch Malcolm move through the world in a way that becomes increasingly strange once you understand that he is dead. Every piece of information necessary to solve the mystery is already there. The problem is that we interpret every clue according to the assumption that Malcolm is alive. We think Anna is angry, so her silence makes sense. We think Malcolm survived, so his presence makes sense. We think Cole is seeing ghosts, so his supernatural experiences make sense. We never question the one assumption connecting all of those explanations, that Malcolm is still living. When he finally discovers the truth, the movie doesn't have to change anything that happened before. The scenes remain exactly the same, but their meaning completely changes. The restaurant becomes a scene about grief instead of an argument. Anna's silence becomes evidence of Malcolm's death instead of evidence of her anger. Cole's confession becomes a clue about Malcolm instead of simply an explanation for Cole. And Malcolm's entire journey becomes the story of a dead man trying to finish the things he couldn't finish while he was alive. That's ultimately why The Biggest Lie in The Sixth Sense is so effective. The movie never needed to hide Malcolm's death behind some complicated mystery. It only needed to make us see the world the way Malcolm saw it. We believed that because Malcolm could see Anna, Anna could see Malcolm. We believed that because he could speak to people, they could hear him. We believed that because he was walking around, he must still be alive. The movie let us make those assumptions for ourselves, and by the time the truth was revealed, we had spent the entire film believing the same thing Malcolm believed. The genius of the ending is that nothing was secretly rewritten. The truth was there from the beginning. We just weren't looking at the story from the right perspective. And once you know that Malcolm was dead the entire time, the most shocking thing about The Sixth Sense isn't the twist itself. It's realizing how many times the movie tried to tell you the truth, and how easily it convinced you to look somewhere else.